Hello friends, Tanya here for Trinity Stamps, and today is day 4 of the sneak peeks for the May release. We're going to be playing with two stamp sets here, the Here's to Brew and the double line background stamp. I have stamped out the hand and the two beverages of choice here, and I'm coloring them with Copic markers. You can see that these are pretty large images, and so if you want to get extra particular or fancy with your coloring, you can absolutely do that. Am I good at that? No. However, I don't think I do too bad a job of coloring these large images with 3 to 4 colors. I've taken some Copic markers here, and I'm writing out the names of the Copic markers that I've used, and I'll do that for each image. So if you want to use that same color combination, you can do that also. I have this beer stein here, and we're going to add some lovely golden beer here, and you could make this a light ale, you could make this a stout, you could make it any color you want. It'd be really kind of cool to make a rainbow of mugs, wouldn't it? Just because I want to do rainbow everything. I wanted these to be more traditional. This would make a great root beer too. Making the foam on this mug was a little tricky for me, but I do think I pulled it off. I did use one of the colors that I used for the foam on the glass, just some highlights on there so it doesn't just look like a stamped image on a piece of white paper. Here I am again writing out the different markers that I used for this mug and for the beer. And now we're going to move on to the mug, the coffee mug or tea mug or whatever you like to put in a mug. I used 3 different red markers here, and I'm going to create my own red tone because these are from different marker families, and I just wanted to have a very specific look. Was this like super planned out? No, but it does work well. The longer you work with your alcohol markers, the more easily you just kind of wing it and come out with some really pretty color combinations. That's the reds that I used for the mug. And now we're going to fill it with some coffee, just because it's great to me to be able to have a version that has alcohol and a version that does not have alcohol. Some people enjoy alcohol responsibly, and some people don't like it, can't use it, and we want to be able to honor both of those groups of people. Now I'm going to stamp over the top with some black ink just to sharpen up our images, and then I'm going to add some sparkle to our foam with some liquid pixie dust. Mine had dehydrated a bit in my tray, and I just add a little bit of water. And then I decided to use my Spectrum Noir sparkle brush to add that sparkle, kind of like as a paintbrush. Now there are coordinating dies for each of these images, and you can see how the both mugs fit nicely under the hand. And I did not tape both sides of my my die when I cut out the arm, and you can see that it shifted a little bit, but I think I'm still going to make it work. Next, I took a piece of cardstock that I'm going to cut down into 2 mini Slimline card fronts, and I took 3 inks to ink blend over the front of this. I know it looks a little bit like candy corn here, but go with it with me here. I wanted something that coordinated well with the images that I created and that had that rather masculine feel to it. I've also picked up some of the extra ink off of the work surface to add a little bit of that painterly feel to it, and I really like how they turned out. Next, we're going to take the double line background stamp, which is clear, which is going to be super useful here because I want to cover this entire almost 6 by 3 inch piece of cardstock. Actually, I think it's 6.5 by 3.5 inches, so that I have room to use my dies to cut this down. So I'm going to stamp down once with some juicy ink, and for the second one I did stamp twice because the ink started to dry out before I put the embossing powder on it. Here you're going to see me line this up with the previous stamping, and since it's a clear stamp, it's very easy to do. Now I'm using some gold embossing powder that I've sprinkled all over our piece of cardstock, and I heat set that. And you can see that it is a little spotty, but it kind of goes with that whole painterly feel. On the next one, I did double stamp the first impression so that it did not dry out by the time I got to putting the ink, powder on. Next, I used the stitched mini slimline dies to die cut out our panels. And I have two 3.5 by 6.5 inch mini slimline cards here. I decided to make it a little bigger than my usual size, which is 3 by 6, because I wanted this to be the right dimensions maybe for the images that we have here. I needed it to be just a little bit bigger. I did put a little bit of extra scrap cardstock behind here, and I find that that just makes my card stay flat for longer. So I will probably, that's something I vacillate between back and forth, adding extra cardstock. I think it really makes a nicer finished card. Here we are trying to match up the different images to the best background for them. And so I wanted the best contrast between the two different images. I have a darker hand and a lighter hand here. And we are going to put the mug on one of them, the beer on one and the coffee mug on the other. There are some stamps in the stamp set that would fit on the front of this mug also. There are coordinating dies for the different sentiments, so you can die cut them or you can stamp them directly on the images. Lots of versatility there. I do love that. Now that I have my images adhered down to the front of the card, I'm going to trim off the extra. I wanted the entire image to be on the card, but with all of the black lines showing. Here are the sentiments that I'm going to use. I stamped them with VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, and then heat embossed them with some clear embossing powder. Die cut them with their coordinating dies. And now I'm adding extra cardstock behind them to make them rest evenly across the front of the card. Now this release is very heavily masculine themed with a bent towards Father's Day, and you could definitely make these Father's Day cards. However, I am in bigger need of thank you cards, and I always have lots of flowery feminine ones, but not enough masculine ones. So here we have a couple of masculine thank you cards that I can use whenever I need them. I am going on another trip soon, so this is definitely going in my stash of thank you cards for my trip. Here we have our two completed cards, almost completed. I'm sorry. I did decide to add an image on the inside of the card to bring the design from the front of the card to the inside. So I used a yellow distress ink here. I think that's fossilized amber. And this one I think is crackling campfire. And that coordinates with the cups that are on the front of the card. There we go. I think that turned out wonderful. We also are going to use some embellishments. We're going to use the sparkle white hearts, the rose red hearts, and the warm yellow, I think it is. Yes. So it's a yellow heart mix. It's these cute little sparkly white hearts and a pretty yellow heart to go on the front of the one with the beer mug. And since they are flat embellishments, they will not add extra bulk to your card, and you can add them to the inside of your card to create a little more consistency from the front of the card to the inside of the card. And you're not going to find that on the inside of a card that you buy in a store. These are so wonderful. I'm so glad we have these flat embellishments because I'm finding even more ways to use them than I do with the thicker embellishments. Definitely a must-have for your stash. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. I'd love to hear in the comments below what you thought of these projects and what you're looking forward to on the new release. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, now would be a great time to do that. And as always, the products that I used today are listed and linked in the description box below. Until next time, Here are a couple more videos I thought you might enjoy. Bye-bye.